First World War. Victory had been ours, but we would soon fail at the peace that followed. Our leaders appeased the growing evil instead of fighting it, sacrificing our future. We vainly reinforced our borders with concrete while we evacuated our children from the cities. There was something terrible brewing with our old enemy, and no one seemed able to stop it. The world was about to find out what happens when an entire nation is swept by madness. What would you do? Surrender? Collaborate? Or resist?
Hello everyone and welcome to my review of Medal of Honor Underground on the PlayStation 1. This was a sequel to Medal of Honor and I think it came out about a year, 18 months, 2 years after the original. And despite the fact that it uses essentially the same control system, the game itself did have improvements over the original. Most notably was probably the variety in settings. What was interesting about this game over many other first-person World War II shooters is the fact that you play the part of a member of the French Resistance, which has remained quite unique. There's not been too many games whereby, certainly in the sense of first-person shooters, where you've actually played the part of the Resistance. Rather than as opposed to a regular soldier in one of the Allied armies. So it was kind of a bit of a nice, refreshing change. You sort of being more engaged in guerrilla warfare tactics as opposed to the sort of flat-out battlefield combat that you were more accustomed to in the modern-day first-person shooters. And it's quite interesting that no one has ever really thought to actually make a more modern version of this, because I think when they say that they've exhausted all avenues of doing first-person shooters set in World War II, well, if there's only one or two games out there that involve you being part of the French Resistance or any other sort of resistance movement, then there's clearly avenues there to go down. What's kind of interesting is that with modern day gaming, I think there would be a greater scope for doing more of the guerrilla warfare in terms of tactics involving stealth. These type of elements were kind of a bit difficult to implement on the older technology because of the fact that there simply wasn't the advancements there in the artificial intelligence. The consoles weren't powerful enough to have advanced AI in them, whereas that would be possible with the more modern day consoles, and you could it would make for a really tense game. And can you imagine a hybrid fusion of a game like Thief but set in the Second World War, and you were a member of the French Resistance, and you were having to go, into Nazi bases and blow them up? That would be incredible. In fact, I might just go away and copyright that idea before some bugger steals it. I think that would be an awesome game. And I know there've been some games out there that have tried to go along those lines, but well, not exactly along those lines, but certainly. There was one game, and I can't remember the name of it, that was sort of a stealthy type game set in World War II. I can't remember what it was called now, but it didn't really hit the highs. I don't know whether it was because it was a poor game or whether it was just because it didn't get enough marketing. It was probably the latter, if I'm honest. But I can't remember what it was called, and that's probably tantamount to the fact that it was poorly marketed. But I do recall there was a game in development where you played a member of the Resistance and you had to stealth it up a bit. But, you know, a real big budget production. I mean, this was a pretty big budget production for its time. I mean, this was a DreamWorks game. You know, as the original Medal of Honor was, it had input from Steve. Well, I don't know if this game had input from Steven Spielberg, but I know that the first game did. So you know, there's a really good scope there, and it's I think it would make for an awesome game anyway. Even if they just released an updated version of this, I think it would be an awesome game, because this is an awesome game. I love playing this. I like the concept, I like the idea. Again, similar to the original Medal of Honor, graphically for its time on the PlayStation 1, the game is fantastic. There's some really good set pieces, the missions are well thought out and balanced. You know, the sound is awesome as well. I mean, the soundtrack to the game is fantastic. Proper orchestral music. You know, it was from these games that the familiar Medal of Honor soundtracks came out from, and you know, again, the production values were fantastic. And you know, there's a lot of care and attention lavished on these games, and it wasn't really the cut and paste type gameplay that you see so often in games today. I mean, as I said in my previous Medal of Honor video, I think I said it anyway, you know, the Medal of Honor series has sadly become something that's trying to imitate Call of Duty, and it just seems really unfortunate to me why they didn't go down the avenue of trying to retain some individuality with the game. I don't know. I think that as good as Allied Assault was, and Allied Assault is a fantastic game, I also think it, as great a game as it was, in a funny kind of way, it damaged the series, because from that point on, Electronic Arts have always tried to recapture that game, and you know, they've tried various things with the franchise. For example, I mean, I think it was I don't know if it was European Assault or it was one of the ones where they had like boss fights in it. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was a horrible game, and it just really showed. I mean, EA just had this period where they were fumbling around in the darkness trying to reboot the franchise in the face of Call of Duty, and the answer was really right there in front of them. It was to go back to the gameplay and go back to the style that they had with the original games on the PlayStation. They just needed to update them, really. And I know it might not be particularly great in terms of an original idea, but it's certainly a lot better than fumbling around with the franchise in the manner that they have done recently, and make a complete cock-up of it. I mean, they sort of called the last Medal of Honor game Medal of Honor as if it was a franchise reboot, and you know, you were playing a special forces operative in Afghanistan, set in the modern day. Well, you know, it was clearly a game that was trying to take on Call of Duty head to head, and you're not going to do that. And especially when you've already got the Battlefield games out there as well, that although in my opinion the Battlefield games are a completely different kettle of fish to the Call of Duty ones, the mainstream gaming media seems intent on comparing Battlefield to Call of Duty, which is ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. EA would have done well with the Medal of Honor franchise to have kept it as a separate entity altogether and stick to the values that made the series successful in the first place. But you know, that's for that one's for the wishing and the wanting, unfortunately, because I don't think they're going to go back to I don't think they're going to go back to this type of gameplay anyway. Because that's it. I mean, like the original Medal of Honor Underground is actually, it's a slower paced game. It's not, rapid. It doesn't feature, a kind of environment which is designed purposefully with a multiplayer in mind. This has been designed purely with a single player in mind, and it benefits from it enormously. It's more slow paced. It's got more complex and interesting environments than one would expect to find in a game whose maps have been designed ultimately to have a multiplayer element in mind. And like I say, it really does benefit from it. This is a very, very good game. And, if you can... with these type of games, with these old games, you have to trade in any kind of graphics snobbery that you may have. You certainly don't have to trade in sound snobbery, because the sound is absolutely fantastic. As I said earlier, these high production values with the music and so on and so forth. And if you can get past the fact that it's the graphics are, by today's standards, are extremely crude and rudimentary. As I say, certainly by today's standards, but for the machine that they're on, they're absolutely fantastic. There's really good lighting effects. The attention to detail is as good as it was ever going to be. If you can get past those elements, then there's an absolutely fantastic game here to play, and one which is, personally speaking, just as rewarding, if not more rewarding, than its modern day counterparts, certainly. And the really wonderful thing is, because it's a PlayStation 1 game, it will work on a PlayStation 3. And this is something that, when Sony took away the backwards compatibility of the PlayStation 2 out of the modern PlayStation 3s, that infuriated me no end. And I'm going to do, there's going to be a video about that coming up soon, a ranting video about just how that, those type of actions irritate me, but that's going to be for another video. But fortunately, the PlayStation 1 games remain compatible with the PS3, even the modern ones, the PS3 Slims. And it's really cool because it does enable you to play some of these classics. You can pick them up for a couple of quid in really good condition. I picked up Dino Crisis for about £4, and it was still sealed in its... it wasn't even second hand. It was still sealed in the cellophane wrap that the game originally come out in, and it's a fantastic game. It's from the makers of Resident Evil, and it was a brilliant game, and you pay very, very little money for it. So it is worth checking them out, because you can pick them up very, very cheap, and it's, as I say, it's really good to be able to play these games, especially if you miss them the first time round, because you'll gain an appreciation of the efforts that was put in to make these games, and just how good they are. Going back to my review of Medal of Honor Underground, there is a good variety as well in the missions. On this particular mission, my job is to take out some tanks, which is easier said than done. You need to find these Panzerfaust shells, and then you need to obviously then go and locate the tanks and take them out. And you've got all of the Wehrmacht soldiers as well in the way. And if you're a particularly diabolical shot like I was just then, you'll make life increasingly more difficult for yourself. But yeah, it's excellent. There's not really much more I can say about this game. if you have a PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 2 or a PlayStation 1 hanging out somewhere and you've never played this game, get this and get the original Medal of Honor games, and just treat yourself to some old school gaming. Check check your graphics head in at the door and just go back and enjoy what it was like. Playing these games years and years ago, when gameplay took centre stage, where the single player element was paramount to the game, as opposed to an afterthought, a tacked on afterthought to the multiplayer. They are far, in my opinion anyway, it's far more rewarding to get through a game like this than it is to get through a cut and paste by the numbers single player campaign. It just seems to be par for the course for many modern day first person shooters, sadly. So yeah, that's my review for Medal of Honor Underground. Check it out, it's well worth getting, and it's an excellent game. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching this video, and please stay tuned to my channel for more videos to come. Thanks very much.